A month after Omar vanished, Bedouin nomads found his vehicle deep in the Rub al Khali. It sat half-buried in the dunes, hundreds of miles from the nearest outpost. Inside, the doors were locked. The keys remained in the ignition. Yet there was no sign of Omar. Only a single, solitary footprint led away from the car and into the empty sand. Omar entered the desert as a meticulous hunter. He carried high-end drones, GPS trackers, and military-grade thermal sensors to document his progress. Since the physical evidence leads nowhere, the investigation relies on this ancient parchment Omar carried with him. This document, written in dense, angular Kufic script, served as a map for the specific entity he was tracking. This text highlights a critical detail at the horizontal gold line. It identifies his target as the Djinn of the Well of Shaytan, a predator that bypasses material treasure to claim the sanity of the traveler instead. Omar drove for 3 weeks to reach the inner depths of the Rub al Khali. In this environment, the silence is a deafening, physical pressure that swallows the mechanical hum of a modern vehicle. According to regional lore, a Djinn encounter begins by systematically breaking down a traveler's auditory perception. It starts with rhythmic, deliberate sounds that fall outside the patterns of local wildlife. Omar's notes record these exact anomalies at his campsite. He documented a rhythmic tapping moving across the fabric of his tent, followed by sibilant, clicking whispers right next to his ear. He spent his nights huddled with a rifle, attempting to rationalize the sounds. He told himself the noises were a psychological byproduct, a hallucination triggered by extreme heat and absolute isolation. The vast, empty geography of the Rub al Khali provides a blank canvas. It acts as a natural laboratory for an entity to dismantle a traveler's objective reality, replacing it with carefully constructed paranoia. On the 5th night, his GPS coordinates brought him to an unremarkable rock formation. Hidden inside was a vertical fissure dropping deep into the earth, emitting a faint sulfuric smell and a pocket of unnaturally warm air. The ancient text described this well as a vortex of smokeless fire. To verify the claim, Omar deployed his thermal drone, nicknamed Ifrit, directly down the dark shaft. The visual feed showed only smooth rock, but the thermal sensor detected a massive spike in temperature. The heat swirled into a glowing vortex, coalescing into an impossibly tall, thin figure, with eyes burning with inner light. Then, the connection snapped. The drone's signal died, and the video feed on Omar's tablet flickered back to life to display a frozen image of his own terror-stricken face. The Djinn neutralizes modern diagnostic equipment by turning it inward. It subverts the observer's tools, using their own screens to reflect their psychological break. Omar sprinted to his vehicle, fumbled the keys into the ignition, and tore across the desert floor. He pushed the engine to its limits to escape the formation. In his rear-view mirror, the entity followed. It glides across the moonlit dunes, an elongated silhouette that effortlessly gains ground on the fleeing car. The chase ended when the tires caught a patch of soft sand. The vehicle lurched and stalled, turning the protective steel cabin into a stationary cage. The entity approached the window. Its features were clear now: skin resembling cracked dry mud, and thin limbs jointed sharply like an insect's. The sand around the vehicle lifted into the air. The entity summoned a localized vortex, battering the glass with gritty debris and drowning out the world with a roar of discordant whispers. A machine built for the road is useless when the ground itself shifts. The desert environment is the Djinn's native domain, rendering any mechanical defense futile. Which brings us back to the present day. When the Bedouin nomads found the campsite, they noted the absolute silence, the locked doors, and that single solitary footprint leading away. The evidence aligns with the folklore. A locked car cannot protect a driver once the mind is broken. At that point, the text dictates, the entity simply claims its trophy. Omar brought sophisticated technology into the wilderness. Ultimately, his drones and thermal sensors did not protect him. they documented the timeline of his demise. Out in the deep dunes of the Rub al Khali, ancient mythology functions as an active apex predator. When confronted with that kind of elemental force, modern logic is unequipped to handle the threat.